The 911 call came in at 1:24 p.m. A man, sobbing, barely able to speak. "My wife fell off a cliff. Please. She's gone." Maui police arrived at Makalua-Puna Point to find him sitting on the rocks, shaking, devastated. His story was simple. They'd been admiring the view. Her wheelchair hit uneven ground. It rolled forward. He couldn't stop it. It was tragic. It was believable. And police had no reason to doubt him. Until a tourist walked into the station that night with her phone in her hand. "I think I recorded something," she said, her voice trembling. "I think I just watched someone get murdered." What was on that video would expose the perfect crime that wasn't so perfect after all.
530, we're number above the alleyway, 51st Street, March 25.
The wedding was everything Erica had ever dreamed of. The venue was an upscale estate overlooking the Columbia River Gorge in Oregon. White orchids cascaded from crystal chandeliers. A string quartet played as 200 guests took their seats in gold-trimmed chairs. Erica's gown was custom designed, flowing white silk with delicate lace sleeves that complemented her seated position in her wheelchair. She looked radiant. She looked happy. She looked like a woman who had finally found her person. Sean Young stood at the altar in a tailored black tuxedo, smiling as his bride came down the aisle. His eyes glistened with what looked like tears. His voice cracked with emotion when he said his vows. "I promise to love you in every moment, to protect you always, to build a life with you that's worthy of everything you are." The guests wiped their eyes. Even the officiant seemed moved. It was the kind of wedding people talk about for years, elegant, emotional, flawless. But behind Sean's polished smile was a man drowning. He had $87,000 in credit card debt spread across 11 different cards. 2 failed businesses had left him with nothing but collection notices and threatened lawsuits. His apartment had an eviction notice taped to the door just 3 weeks before the wedding. He had no savings, no income, and no way out. Except one. Erica Whitmore was a multi-millionaire. She had inherited $4.3 million after her parents died in a plane crash when she was 7 years old. She'd invested wisely, worked hard despite her disability, and built a comfortable life for herself. She owned a $680,000 condo outright. She had investment accounts, savings, and financial security most people only dream about. And she was kind, trusting, vulnerable in ways that made her an easy target for someone like Sean. He had been searching for someone like her for over a year. He joined dating apps and filtered his searches for women who listed themselves as financially independent or mentioned careers in high-paying fields. He paid special attention to women with disabilities, women who might be lonely, who might have faced rejection, who might be more willing to overlook red flags if someone showed them attention. It wasn't love he was looking for. It was opportunity. The wedding planner noticed something odd during the months leading up to the ceremony. Sean insisted on the most expensive options for everything: the premium floral arrangements, the top-tier catering package, the live musicians instead of a DJ. But every time an invoice came due, he made sure Erica was the one who signed the checks. He'd say things like, "Honey, you have such better taste than me. You handle the finances." Or, "I want you to have everything you deserve. Don't worry about the cost." It sounded romantic. It sounded like a man who wanted to spoil his bride. But the planner later told investigators that Sean never once offered to contribute financially. He never pulled out his own credit card. He never suggested splitting costs. Every single dollar of that $30,000 wedding came from Erica's accounts. And he didn't just accept it, he encouraged it. He pushed for upgrades. He added expensive details. He made sure she spent as much as possible, as if he were already spending money that would someday be his. To the guests, the wedding looked like a love story. A successful, independent woman finding a man who didn't see her wheelchair as a barrier. A man who seemed patient, caring, devoted. Friends commented on how attentive Sean was, how he adjusted her chair, brought her champagne, stayed by her side all night. Erica's maid of honor gave a tearful toast about how Erica had waited so long for real love and had finally found it. Everyone applauded. Everyone believed it. But Erica's Aunt Bella sat in the front row with a knot in her stomach she couldn't explain. She'd raised Erica since she was 7 years old. She knew her niece better than anyone. And something about Sean felt off. He was charming. Too charming. His compliments felt rehearsed. His devotion felt performative. Bella had tried to talk to Erica about it weeks before the wedding, gently suggesting they wait a bit longer, maybe do some premarital counseling. Erica had smiled and said, "Aunt Bella, I know you're worried, but I've been careful my whole life. I've been hurt before. I know what red flags look like. Sean is different. He loves me." Bella didn't push. She didn't want to be the person who ruined her niece's happiness. So she sat at that wedding, watching Erica smile wider than she'd smiled in years, and she told herself she was being overprotective. She told herself everything was fine, but it wasn't fine. The couple had only been together for 11 months before Sean proposed. That alone wasn't necessarily a red flag. Plenty of couples move quickly. But the way Sean pushed for a fast wedding was different. He didn't want to wait. He said things like, "Why wait when we know this is right?" and "Life's too short to waste time." Erica, who had spent years being cautious, found his urgency romantic. She thought it meant he was sure about her. She didn't realize it meant he was sure about her money. Sean had quit his part-time job 3 months before the wedding. When Erica asked about it, he said he wanted to focus on wedding planning and being present for her. It sounded sweet. But the truth was he'd been fired for repeatedly coming to work late and spending hours on his phone. He had no intention of finding another job. Why would he? Erica paid for everything. Rent, groceries, utilities, his car insurance. He'd moved into her condo in July, just 2 months after proposing, and he never contributed a single dollar to household expenses. Erica's friends started noticing changes. She stopped returning calls from anyone who questioned the relationship. One friend, concerned about how quickly Sean had moved in and taken over Erica's finances, asked her directly if she was sure about everything. Erica responded coldly, accusing the friend of being unsupportive and jealous. They hadn't spoken since. Sean had quietly, systematically isolated Erica from anyone who might warn her, and she let him, because she wanted so badly to believe this was real. As the reception ended and guests threw rice, Erica and Sean climbed into a rented luxury car and drove off toward their honeymoon suite. Erica leaned her head on Sean's shoulder, exhausted but glowing. She whispered, "I can't believe I get to spend the rest of my life with you." Sean kissed the top of her head and smiled. But his mind was already in Hawaii, already at the cliffs, already counting the days until she'd be gone and the money would be his. No one at that wedding knew they were watching a killer celebrate the first phase of his plan. The honeymoon wasn't a romantic getaway, it was the execution date. Before we go any further into this story, we need to ask something of you. If this case is gripping you the way it gripped investigators, if you're already feeling the weight of what's coming, take a second right now and hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and share this video. Stories like Erica's need to be told. They need to reach people who might be in similar situations, people who might recognize the warning signs we're about to uncover. Your support makes that possible. Now, let's continue. Erica Whitmore wasn't born into tragedy, but tragedy found her early. She was born in Portland, Oregon, on a warm spring day in 1989. Her father, Donovan Whitmore, owned a pharmaceutical distribution company that supplied medications to hospitals across the Pacific Northwest. Her mother, Celeste, came from old money. Her family had made their fortune in real estate decades earlier. Together, they gave Erica a childhood filled with comfort, love, and stability. She had everything a little girl could want. But on July 14th, 1991, everything changed. Erica was 7 years old, staying with her Aunt Bella for the weekend while her parents flew to a business meeting in Denver. It was a routine trip. Donovan had made the flight dozens of times before in the family's private Cessna. The weather forecast was clear. There were no mechanical issues reported. It should have been an easy, uneventful flight. The plane went down over the Appalachian Mountains just after 3 p.m. Investigators later determined it was a mechanical failure. Something in the engine gave out mid-flight, and Donovan couldn't regain control. The Cessna crashed into a heavily forested area in Virginia. Rescue teams took 18 hours to locate the wreckage. There were no survivors. Bella was the one who had to tell Erica. She sat her down in the living room, held her small hands, and tried to find words that could soften the blow. But there are no soft words for that kind of news. Erica didn't cry at first. She just stared, her young mind unable to fully process what gone meant. It wasn't until the funeral, when she saw the two caskets side by side, that she broke down. She sobbed so hard she couldn't breathe. Bella held her through it, whispering promises that everything would be okay, even though she didn't know if that was true. Erica was the sole heir to her parents' estate. At 7 years old, she inherited $4.3 million, held in a trust that she wouldn't be able to access until she turned 21. Bella, Celeste's younger sister, became her legal guardian. Bella was 38 at the time, unmarried, and working as a high school principal. She had a stable life, but she'd never planned on raising a child. Still, she didn't hesitate. Erica was family. Bella would do whatever it took. Despite the massive inheritance waiting for her, Bella raised Erica with the same values she'd grown up with: hard work, humility, respect for money. She didn't let Erica grow up thinking she was rich. She gave her an allowance like any other kid. She made her do chores. She taught her that money didn't define a person's worth. Erica went to public school, participated in after-school activities, and lived what looked like a normal childhood on the surface. But underneath, Erica was struggling. She went to therapy every week to process the trauma of losing both parents so suddenly. She had nightmares about plane crashes. She developed anxiety around traveling. Birthdays and holidays were bittersweet. Bella tried her best to make them special, but there was always an absence that couldn't be filled. Erica would see other kids with their parents and feel a deep, aching loneliness that never fully went away. As she got older, Erica also developed trust issues. People at school found out about her inheritance. Someone's parent worked at the bank. Someone else overheard a conversation. Suddenly, kids who'd never talked to her before wanted to be her friend. They invited her to parties, asked her for loans, treated her differently. Erica learned quickly that money changed how people saw her. She started wondering if anyone actually liked her for who she was, or if they just saw dollar signs. By the time she graduated high school, Erica had built walls around herself. She was polite, friendly even, but she didn't let people get close. She went to Portland State University and studied marketing. She was smart, driven, and determined to build her own life separate from the inheritance. She wanted to prove, to herself and to everyone else, that she was more than just the rich orphan girl. At 24, Erica was thriving. She'd graduated with honors and landed a job as a marketing executive at a tech startup in Seattle. She was good at her job, creative, organized, great with clients. Her bosses loved her. She was being considered for a promotion. She had her own apartment, paid her own bills, and rarely touched the trust fund. She was proud of the life she'd built, and then, without warning, everything fell apart again. Erica woke up one morning in May 2013 with severe back pain. She assumed she'd slept wrong, maybe pulled a muscle at the gym. But by that afternoon, the pain had spread. Her legs felt numb. She couldn't stand up without losing her balance. By evening, she couldn't feel her legs at all. Bella rushed her to the emergency room. Doctors ran tests, MRIs, spinal taps, blood work. The diagnosis came back 3 days later: transverse myelitis, a rare inflammatory disease that attacks the spinal cord. No one knows what causes it. It can strike anyone at any time. In Erica's case, it struck fast and hard. She spent 3 weeks in the ICU fighting infections and complications. Her body was attacking itself, and the doctors weren't sure they could stop it. Bella stayed by her side every single day, sleeping in a chair next to the hospital bed, holding Erica's hand through every painful procedure. Erica's prognosis was grim. Doctors gave her only a 30% chance of ever walking again. She survived, but the damage was done. After 6 months of grueling rehabilitation, Erica regained strength in her upper body. She learned how to navigate the world from a wheelchair. She worked with physical therapists, occupational therapists, counselors. She fought every single day to reclaim as much independence as possible, but her legs never recovered. She would be wheelchair-bound for the rest of her life. The emotional toll was devastating. Erica had already lost so much: her parents, her childhood innocence, her ability to trust easily. Now she'd lost her mobility. She fell into a deep depression. She quit her job. She stopped seeing friends. For months, she barely left her apartment. Bella was terrified she'd lose her niece to despair. But slowly, Erica found her way back. She started attending a support group for people with spinal cord injuries. She discovered adaptive sports and fell in love with wheelchair basketball. She began volunteering with a disability advocacy nonprofit, helping other newly disabled adults navigate the overwhelming transition. And eventually, she started working again. This time running her own consulting business from home, using the skills she'd developed in marketing to help nonprofits build their brands. By the time she was 30, Erica had rebuilt her life once again. She was financially independent, professionally successful, and deeply involved in advocacy work. She started a nonprofit organization that connected disabled professionals with employment opportunities. She spoke at conferences. She mentored younger disabled adults. She was proud of what she'd accomplished, but the loneliness never went away. Dating was complicated. Some men were intimidated by her wheelchair. Others fetishized it in ways that made her deeply uncomfortable. A few seemed genuinely interested, but Erica could never tell if they saw her or her money. She'd been on dozens of first dates that never turned into second ones. She'd had her heart broken twice by men who disappeared once they realized her disability was permanent. By 33, Erica had almost given up on finding love. She told Bella, "I just want someone who doesn't see limitations when they look at me. Someone who sees me. Not my chair, not my bank account. Just me." Bella hugged her and promised her that person existed. She just had to be patient. And then, in March 2022, Erica met Sean Young. He seemed like everything she'd been waiting for. He didn't treat her differently because of her wheelchair. He asked thoughtful questions. He listened. He made her laugh. For the first time in years, Erica let her guard down. She had no idea she was letting in a predator. She had no idea that the man who seemed so perfect was studying her, learning her weaknesses, planning how to take everything she had. She had survived a plane crash that killed her parents. She had survived a disease that nearly killed her, but she wouldn't survive the man she married. Sean Young didn't stumble into Erica's life by accident. He found her deliberately, the way a hunter tracks prey. In March 2022, Erica attended a disability awareness conference in Portland. It was a 3-day event focused on employment rights, accessibility advocacy, and building professional networks for disabled individuals. Erica had attended similar conferences before. They were important for her nonprofit work, and she genuinely enjoyed connecting with others in the disability community. Sean was there too, wearing a volunteer coordinator badge and a friendly smile. He'd registered as a volunteer weeks earlier, not because he cared about disability rights, but because he'd researched the event and knew it would be filled with exactly the kind of women he was looking for. Women with disabilities. Women with money. Women who might be lonely enough to overlook the inconsistencies in his story. Their first conversation happened at a coffee station during a mid-morning break. Erica was refilling her cup when Sean approached and asked if she had any recommendations for accessible travel destinations. It was a simple question, carefully chosen. It showed interest in accessibility without being condescending. It invited conversation without being pushy. Erica, naturally cautious, gave a polite but brief answer. She mentioned a few national parks with good wheelchair trails. Sean didn't push for more. He thanked her, introduced himself, and walked away. It was a smart move. He knew that coming on too strong would trigger her defenses. Over the next 2 days of the conference, they ran into each other several more times. Each interaction was brief, friendly, seemingly coincidental. By the final day, Sean asked if she'd be interested in staying in touch professionally. He said he was impressed by her nonprofit work and wanted to learn more about disability advocacy. Erica gave him her business card. For the first 3 months, their relationship was purely friendly. They met for coffee once or twice a month. They talked about disability rights, accessible design, and shared interests in hiking documentaries and true crime podcasts. Sean was patient. He didn't flirt. He didn't make any romantic moves. He presented himself as someone who genuinely wanted to be her friend, and that patience worked. Erica, who'd been burned before by men who wanted too much too fast, started to relax around him. What Erica didn't know was that Sean had been studying her long before they met. He'd found her nonprofit's website weeks before the conference. He'd read every blog post she'd written. He'd scrolled through her social media accounts, learning her interests, her values, her vulnerabilities. He knew she loved true crime shows, so he started watching them too. He knew she was passionate about accessible hiking trails, so he researched them and could talk knowledgeably about the topic. He mirrored her perfectly, creating the illusion that they were naturally compatible. Sean also began volunteering at Erica's nonprofit in June 2022. He showed up to events, helped with administrative tasks, and made himself useful. This move was brilliant because it accomplished 2 things. First, it gave him more time with Erica in a context that felt safe and professional. Second, it earned him credibility with Bella, who was still Erica's primary protector and most trusted confidant. Bella met Sean several times during nonprofit events and found him polite, helpful, and respectful. Her initial concerns started to fade. In late June, Sean made his move. After a particularly successful fundraising event, he and Erica went out for dinner to celebrate. The conversation shifted from professional to personal. Sean opened up, or at least appeared to. He told Erica that his mother had multiple sclerosis and had been in a wheelchair for the last decade. He described the challenges of caregiving, the frustration of watching someone you love struggle with accessibility barriers, the emotional weight of feeling helpless. It was a complete lie. His mother was perfectly healthy and lived in Arizona. But it worked. Erica felt seen in a way she hadn't before. Here was someone who understood the reality of disability, not from a theoretical perspective, but from lived experience. Sean didn't pity her. He didn't treat her like she was fragile. He talked to her like an equal. And for the first time in years, Erica let herself hope that maybe this could be something real. Their relationship turned romantic in July. Sean was careful not to rush things physically or emotionally. He let Erica set the pace. He was affectionate, but respectful. He talked about the future in vague, hopeful terms, someday and maybe when, without pressuring her for commitment. It felt healthy. It felt safe. Erica wrote in her journal, "For the first time, someone sees me, not my chair. I think I'm falling in love." By August, they were officially a couple. Bella was cautiously supportive. She'd seen Erica hurt before and didn't want to see it happen again, but Sean seemed different. He was attentive without being controlling. He encouraged Erica's independence. He showed up to family dinners and was polite and engaged. Bella told herself that maybe she'd been wrong to worry. But behind the scenes, Sean was laying groundwork. In September, he suggested that he and Erica merge their bank accounts for simplicity as a future couple. He framed it as a modern, practical approach to building a life together. Erica hesitated. Her trust issues flared up, but Sean was patient. He didn't push. He said, "No pressure. I just want us to be a team in every way. But we can wait until you're ready." That response, calm, understanding, not defensive, convinced her. In October, they merged accounts. Within 2 weeks, strange charges started appearing. A $1,200 purchase at an electronics store, a $600 cash withdrawal, a $400 charge at a men's clothing boutique. When Erica asked about them, Sean had an explanation ready. He claimed someone had stolen his card information and was making fraudulent purchases. He said he was handling it with the bank and told her not to worry. Erica believed him because she wanted to, because the alternative, that he was stealing from her, was too painful to consider. Sean also began isolating Erica from her friends, but he did it so subtly that she didn't notice. When a friend invited her to lunch, Sean would suggest they do something together instead. When a former coworker called to catch up, Sean would be in the room, listening, making comments afterward about how that person seemed negative or didn't really understand you. One friend, deeply concerned about how quickly Sean had moved in and taken over Erica's finances, confronted her directly. She asked Erica if she was sure Sean wasn't using her. Erica was furious. She accused her friend of being unsupportive and jealous. They hadn't spoken since. Sean had successfully cut her off from one of her closest allies. In February 2023, Sean proposed. He took Erica to an accessible beach overlook in Oregon, a place she'd mentioned loving as a child. The proposal was romantic and emotional. Sean got down on one knee, held her hands and said, "You've taught me what real strength looks like. I want to spend the rest of my life protecting you, loving you, and building something beautiful with you." Erica cried. She said yes. The engagement ring was expensive, over $8,000. What Erica didn't know was that Sean had secretly added himself to one of her credit cards 3 weeks earlier and charged the ring to her account. She was paying for her own engagement ring and didn't even know it. Sean immediately pushed for a quick wedding. He didn't want a long engagement. He said things like, "Life's too short, especially after everything you've been through," and "Why wait when we know this is right?" Erica's trust issues resurfaced briefly. She suggested waiting a year, maybe doing some premarital counseling. Sean's face fell. He looked hurt. He said, "I understand if you're not ready. I just love you so much that waiting feels impossible, but I'll wait as long as you need." That response, vulnerable, patient, selfless, broke down her resistance. They set a wedding date for November 2023, just 9 months away. Sean quit his part-time job in May, 3 months before the wedding. When Erica asked why, he said he wanted to focus on wedding planning and being fully present for her. He said his job was stressful and was taking time away from what mattered most, their relationship. It sounded romantic. Erica didn't question it. She didn't know he'd been fired for poor performance. She didn't know he had no intention of ever working again. By the time the wedding arrived, Sean had complete access to Erica's finances. He'd moved into her condo. He'd isolated her from concerned friends. He'd positioned himself as her protector, her partner, the person she trusted most in the world. And Erica believed it all. She believed she'd finally found someone who loved her for who she was. She had no idea she'd found someone who loved her for what she had. While Erica planned a future, Sean was planning an ending. The wedding was never the beginning of their life together. It was the countdown to hers ending. Sean insisted on Maui for the honeymoon. Erica had suggested several alternatives. Southern California, where the beaches were accessible and the terrain was manageable. Maybe Florida, where they could visit theme parks designed with wheelchair users in mind. She wanted somewhere she could move around easily, somewhere she wouldn't feel like a burden. But Sean was firm. He wanted Maui. He said it was a once-in-a-lifetime trip, a place they'd remember forever. He promised he'd researched accessible activities and would make sure she experienced everything safely. What Erica didn't know was that Sean had been researching Maui for weeks, but not for accessibility. He'd been searching most dangerous cliffs in Hawaii and Maui cliff death statistics. He'd been looking at coastal areas known for fatal falls. He'd been reading news articles about tourists who died at scenic overlooks. He was building a blueprint for murder, and Maui offered exactly what he needed: remote cliffs, unpredictable terrain, and a plausible explanation for an accident. Sean booked their stay at the Ritz-Carlton Kapalua, a luxury resort on Maui's northwest coast. The room cost $600 a night. The total for their week-long stay came to over $5,000, not including meals, activities, and car rental. Every penny came from Erica's accounts. Sean presented it as a gift, a way of showing her how much she meant to him. Erica was touched. She didn't realize she was funding her own murder. Before they left for Hawaii, Bella pulled Sean aside at the airport. She hugged him and said, "Please take care of her. Be careful near cliffs or water. She's vulnerable in unfamiliar places. Sean looked Bella in the eyes and said, I'll guard her with my life, Bella. She's my everything. A family friend who witnessed the exchange later told investigators that Sean's tone felt rehearsed, like he'd practiced that exact line. Bella hugged Erica goodbye, fighting back tears she couldn't explain. Something felt wrong, but she couldn't name it. She told herself she was being overprotective. The first 2 days of the honeymoon were perfect. Sean was attentive, affectionate, and thoughtful. They had breakfast on their private balcony overlooking the ocean. They went to a luau. They took photos at sunset. Erica posted on Instagram, sharing pictures of her and Sean with captions like, "Living my best life with my best person." She looked genuinely happy. She had no idea what was coming. On the morning of day 3, Sean suggested they visit Nakalele Blowhole, a dramatic coastal formation on Maui's northern tip. It's a dangerous spot. Waves crash through a lava tube and shoot water high into the air. The terrain is rough, the rocks are slippery, and multiple tourists have died there over the years. Sean presented it as an adventure. Erica was hesitant. She asked if it was wheelchair accessible. Sean assured her it was manageable and that he'd help her every step of the way. But that morning, Erica woke up violently ill. She had severe nausea, uncontrollable vomiting, and extreme weakness. She couldn't get out of bed. Sean called the hotel doctor, who diagnosed it as food poisoning. Erica spent the entire day in bed, too weak to move. The trip to Nakalele Blowhole was canceled. Sean appeared concerned, bringing her water and medication, checking on her throughout the day. What Erica didn't know was that Sean had crushed several antihistamine tablets into her breakfast smoothie that morning. He'd given her enough diphenhydramine to make her dizzy, disoriented, and weak. His plan had been to take her to the cliffs while she was impaired, push her over, and claim she'd lost her balance due to sudden illness. But Erica's body processed the drug faster than he'd anticipated. By evening, she was feeling better. His first murder attempt had failed. Sean adapted quickly. The next morning, once Erica had fully recovered, he suggested a different location, Makaluapuna Point, famous for its dragon's teeth rock formations. He described it as one of Maui's most beautiful and unique landscapes. Erica looked it up on her phone. The photos were stunning, black volcanic rocks jutting from the earth in jagged, tooth-like formations, surrounded by turquoise water. She wanted to see it, but she had concerns. She asked Sean directly, "Is it wheelchair accessible? I don't want to get stuck somewhere dangerous." Sean smiled and reassured her. He said he'd researched it thoroughly and that while the terrain was a bit rough, he'd help her navigate it. He said he wanted her to experience everything Hawaii had to offer. He promised they'd be careful. Erica trusted him completely. Makaluapuna Point was exactly what Sean needed. The area is a jagged volcanic coastline on Maui's northwest shore. The rocks are sharp, uneven, and treacherous even for able-bodied hikers. The cliffs drop more than 50 feet to violent ocean waves below. There are no railings, no safety barriers, no warning signs. Locals know better than to bring wheelchairs there. It's nearly impossible to navigate safely. But it's remote enough to have sporadic foot traffic, which meant Sean could time his visit to when fewer people would be around. Sean had already scouted the location. He'd researched tide schedules, checked weather forecasts, and studied photos to identify the exact spot where he'd push Erica. He knew how long it would take to drive there from the hotel. He knew where to park. He knew the path he'd take. He'd planned every detail except one. He didn't plan on being watched. On the evening before the murder, Sean seemed unusually affectionate. He ordered champagne and chocolate-covered strawberries to their room. He told Erica how much he loved her, how lucky he was to have her, how excited he was about their future together. Erica leaned against him and whispered, "I can't believe I get to spend the rest of my life with you." Sean kissed her forehead, but his mind was already at the cliffs, already counting the hours until she'd be gone. November 8th, 2023, started like any other morning at the Ritz-Carlton Kapalua. Guests were waking up, ordering room service, planning their day's activities. The sun was rising over the Pacific, casting golden light across the resort's manicured grounds. It should have been just another beautiful day in paradise. But for Sean Young, it was the day he'd been planning for months. It was the day he would kill his wife. At 6:41 a.m., hotel security cameras captured Sean leaving his honeymoon suite alone. He was dressed casually, shorts, a t-shirt, sneakers. He walked through the lobby without speaking to anyone, got into their rental car, and drove out of the parking lot. Erica was still asleep. She had no idea he'd left. Sean drove north along the coastal highway toward Makaluapuna Point. The drive took approximately 20 minutes. He arrived at the small parking area at 6:58 a.m. There were no other cars. The area was deserted. A security camera at the edge of the parking lot captured his arrival. He sat in the car for a moment, checking his phone, before getting out and walking toward the cliffs. What Sean didn't know was that his every move was being recorded. The parking area had surveillance cameras installed after several tourist accidents in previous years. Those cameras captured Sean walking the cliff path slowly and deliberately. He wasn't admiring the view. He was studying the terrain. The footage shows Sean walking to the cliff's edge and standing there for over 4 minutes. He looked down repeatedly, leaning forward slightly as if measuring the distance to the water below. He walked back and forth along the path 3 times, pacing the route from the parking area to the cliff. At one point, he crouched down near the edge, examining the rocks and the drop. He pulled out his phone and took several photos. Photos he would later delete, but that forensic specialists would recover. Sean checked his phone constantly during those 34 minutes. Investigators would later determine he was reviewing weather conditions and tide schedules. He wanted to make sure the ocean currents would carry Erica's body away from the immediate area, making recovery more difficult. He was thinking about every detail. He was making sure his plan was perfect. At 7:32 a.m., Sean returned to his car and drove back to the hotel. He arrived at the suite at 8:15 a.m. Erica was awake by then, sitting in bed and checking her phone. Sean kissed her good morning and told her he'd gone out to grab coffee and take a quick walk on the beach. Erica didn't question it. Why would she? She trusted him completely. Sean ordered room service, champagne and chocolate-covered strawberries. He presented it as a romantic breakfast in bed. He told Erica how beautiful she looked, how much he loved waking up next to her, how grateful he was for their life together. Erica smiled and kissed him. She had no idea she had less than 5 hours to live. At 9:42 a.m., Erica posted to Instagram. The photo showed her and Sean on their private balcony, the ocean sparkling behind them. The caption read, "Day 4 in paradise with my forever love." Friends and family liked the post and left comments. "You two are perfect together, and so happy for you." That photo would be the last one Erica ever posted. That moment would be the last time she looked truly happy. By 11:30 a.m., Sean was ready. He suggested they head out to see the dragon's teeth formations before it got too hot. Erica agreed. She was excited. Sean helped her into the rental car, loaded her wheelchair into the trunk, and drove north along the same route he'd taken that morning. Erica admired the coastal views, pointing out beautiful spots along the way. She had no idea she was driving toward the place Sean had scouted hours earlier. She had no idea she was driving toward her death. Front desk staff at the hotel later told investigators that Sean seemed unusually cheerful that morning. One employee described him as almost giddy, like he was excited about something. The valet who helped load Erica's wheelchair into the car said Sean was very specific about how it should be positioned, almost impatient. At the time, no one thought anything of it. Looking back, it felt wrong. As they drove, Sean kept glancing at Erica. He reached over and held her hand. He smiled at her. And Erica, completely unaware, smiled back. She thought they were going on an adventure together. She thought she was safe with the man she loved. She had no idea that every smile, every reassuring word, every gentle touch was part of a performance. Sean wasn't taking her to see beautiful rock formations. He was taking her to a cliff where he would push her to her death. At 12:47 p.m., Sean and Erica's rental car pulled into the small parking area at Makaluapuna Point. There were only two other vehicles, a family with young children and an elderly couple exploring the area. The midday sun was bright and hot. The wind coming off the ocean was strong enough to whip hair and clothing around. Erica could hear the waves crashing against the volcanic rocks below. The sound was both beautiful and unsettling. Sean got out of the car and retrieved Erica's wheelchair from the trunk. He helped her transfer from the passenger seat into the chair with practiced ease. To anyone watching, he looked like a devoted husband taking care of his disabled wife. He adjusted the chair, made sure she was comfortable, and asked if she needed anything before they started walking. Erica smiled and said she was fine. She was excited to see the famous dragon's teeth up close. The path from the parking area to the cliff's edge was rough. The ground was covered in sharp black volcanic rock, uneven, jagged, and difficult to navigate even on foot. Pushing a wheelchair across that terrain was nearly impossible. The chair's wheels struggled to find traction. Sean had to tilt and lift the wheelchair repeatedly to get over obstacles. Erica gripped the armrests tightly, nervous about tipping over. About halfway to the cliffs, Erica expressed concern. She said, "Sean, maybe we shouldn't go further. This is too rough, and I'm scared we'll get stuck or I'll fall out of the chair." Her voice carried a note of real fear. Sean stopped, crouched down beside her, and took her hand. He said, "We're almost there, baby. Trust me. The view is absolutely worth it. I promise I won't let anything happen to you." His tone was calm and reassuring. Erica looked into his eyes and saw what she thought was love and concern. She nodded and said, "Okay." The family with young children packed up and left around 1:14 p.m. The elderly couple was far behind Sean and Erica, at least 300 yards away, partially obscured by large rock formations. For all practical purposes, Sean and Erica were alone. Sean guided the wheelchair to a particularly remote section of the cliff, away from where other visitors typically gathered. He positioned Erica about 3 feet from the edge. The drop was sheer, 55 feet of jagged volcanic rock leading down to violent, churning ocean waves. Erica looked over the edge and felt her stomach drop. She said, "Sean, this is too close. Can we go back a little?" Sean didn't respond immediately. He stood behind her wheelchair, his hands on the handles, staring out at the ocean. Erica turned her head to look at him. His expression was blank. Not angry, not sad, just empty. And in that moment, something in Erica's gut told her something was wrong. At 1:18 p.m., a solo hiker named Damon Fletcher arrived at Makaluapuna Point. He was about 200 yards away from Sean and Erica, partially hidden by large rock formations. He was taking photos of the coastline when he heard voices. He couldn't see the speakers clearly, but he could hear them. A man's voice, calm and steady. A woman's voice, uncertain and scared. And then he heard words that stopped him in his tracks. A woman's voice pleading, "Please, Sean, I don't want to be this close to the edge. Can we go back?" Damon looked toward the sound. He could see figures near the cliff but couldn't make out details. He continued listening. There was silence for a few seconds. And then, at exactly 1:22 p.m., he heard a scream. It was sharp, terrified, and abruptly cut short. Damon immediately started running toward the sound, but the terrain slowed him. The volcanic rocks were treacherous. He had to watch his footing or risk falling himself. What Damon didn't know was that another person had been recording at that exact moment. Imani Caldwell, a 28-year-old tourist from Atlanta, was standing about 150 yards away on a different section of the cliffs. She was filming a panoramic video of the coastline, slowly panning her phone across the dramatic landscape. She was focused on the ocean and the rock formations. She wasn't paying attention to the people in the frame. Imani's video, recorded at 1:21 p.m., captured everything. The footage shows Sean standing directly behind Erica's wheelchair. His feet are planted wide, his body weight shifted forward. His hands are on the wheelchair handles. Erica's head is turned slightly, as if she's trying to look back at him. And then, in one clear and deliberate motion, Sean pushes. Both arms extend forward with force. The wheelchair lurches violently toward the edge. Erica's arms fly up defensively, reaching back toward Sean as if trying to grab him, trying to stop what's happening. The wheelchair tips forward. Erica tumbles over the volcanic rocks, her body striking the jagged stone once, twice, before disappearing over the cliff edge. The scream, raw and filled with terror, echoes across the landscape. And then, there's silence. Sean stands motionless at the edge for 3 seconds. He's staring down at the water where Erica's body has fallen. He doesn't move. He doesn't call out. He doesn't try to help. He just stands there. Then he takes one step back from the edge, pulls out his phone, and appears to take a deep breath. He's preparing himself, preparing for the performance that comes next. At 1:24 p.m., Sean calls 911. His voice is panicked, breaking with sobs. "My wife fell off a cliff. Please, you have to help. She's in a wheelchair. She's disabled. She can't swim. Please hurry." The dispatcher tries to keep him calm, asking for his location and details about what happened. Sean is crying so hard he can barely get the words out. "The wheelchair hit a rock. It just rolled forward. I tried to grab her, but I couldn't reach in time. She went over. Oh God, she went over." Damon Fletcher reaches Sean moments later, out of breath and horrified. He shouts, "What the hell happened?" Sean spins around, his face streaked with tears. "My wife, she fell. The wheelchair rolled. I couldn't stop it." His hands are shaking. His voice is breaking. To Damon, it looks like a man in the grip of unimaginable trauma. But Damon notices something odd. Sean's clothing is completely clean. There's no dirt, no scrapes, no signs that he tried to grab Erica or stop the wheelchair. His hands don't have any marks. His knees aren't scraped from lunging forward. And every few seconds between sobs, Sean checks his phone. Damon doesn't say anything, but the observation sticks with him. Emergency responders arrive within 15 minutes. Paramedics treat Sean for shock. Police officers secure the scene and begin interviewing witnesses. Sean tells his story again. They were admiring the view. The wheelchair hit an uneven rock. It tipped forward. He couldn't stop it in time. His performance is convincing. The officers take notes and offer their condolences. Meanwhile, the Coast Guard and rescue divers are searching the water below. The ocean at Makaluapuna Point is violent, with strong currents and rocky outcroppings. Erica's body has been pulled away from the immediate impact site. It takes 2.5 hours before divers locate her. At 3:47 p.m., they recover her remains. The injuries are catastrophic. She struck the rocks multiple times during the fall. Death was instantaneous. When crime scene investigators process the area later, they find critical evidence. The wheelchair tire marks stop exactly 3 feet from the cliff's edge. The chair didn't roll on its own. There are dual shoe impressions in the volcanic ash directly behind where the wheelchair had been positioned. The impressions show Sean's feet planted firmly, angled forward in a pushing stance, not sideways as someone trying to stop a rolling wheelchair would be. There are no defensive marks from Erica trying to break the chair. There are no drag marks showing Sean tried to pull her back. The handprints on the wheelchair handles show a grip consistent with force, not control. The medical examiner notes something else during the autopsy. There's significant bruising on Erica's upper arms, consistent with being gripped tightly just before the fall. Someone held her. Someone made sure she couldn't escape. And then someone let her go. Before we move forward, I want to take a moment to thank everyone who's watching and supporting this channel. Your presence here truly keeps this work alive. This community continues to grow because of people like you who believe in real, meaningful storytelling. Becoming a channel member unlocks exclusive content, behind-the-scenes access, and directly helps us bring more powerful true stories to light. Your support makes a real difference. I'd also love to know who's here. Drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. And if you're still tuned in right now, write "I'm still here" in the comments. Let's see who's with us till the end. Don't forget to hit that like button too. Now, let's continue. Maui Police Department officers arrived at Makaluapuna Point at 1:31 p.m., just 7 minutes after Sean's 911 call. They found him sitting on a rock near the parking area, his head in his hands, his body shaking. Paramedics were already on scene, checking his vitals and trying to calm him down. Sean was crying, deep, gasping sobs that seemed to come from the core of his body. He looked like a man whose entire world had just shattered. The first officers on scene took his initial statement. Sean's story was straightforward. He and Erica had driven to Makaluapuna Point to see the famous Dragon's Teeth rock formations. They'd walked, well, he'd pushed her wheelchair, out toward the cliffs to get a better view. They were standing maybe 10 feet from the edge when the wheelchair hit an uneven patch of rock. It tipped forward suddenly. Sean reached for it, tried to grab the handles, but it happened too fast. The chair rolled toward the edge. Erica went over. He couldn't stop it. The officers wrote everything down. They offered their condolences. Tragic accidents at scenic overlooks weren't uncommon in Hawaii. Tourists underestimated the terrain, got too close to the edge, didn't respect the power of the ocean. It was devastating, but it happened. The officers had no immediate reason to suspect foul play, but Detective Kendra Lowe had reasons. She arrived at the scene at 2:15 p.m., called in because any death at a tourist location required a thorough investigation. Lowe was 41 years old and had spent 16 years with Maui PD's Criminal Investigations Division. She specialized in suspicious deaths, cases where the official story didn't quite match the evidence. She'd seen dozens of accidents that turned out to be something else entirely. Lowe walked the scene carefully, taking in every detail. The terrain was brutal, sharp volcanic rock, uneven ground, no clear path. She looked at the cliff edge where Erica had gone over. She looked at the distance from the parking area, and she started asking questions that made the other officers uncomfortable. Why would anyone bring a wheelchair-bound woman to this location? The area wasn't remotely accessible. Even able-bodied people struggled to navigate the rocks safely. It made no sense. Lowe approached Sean, who was still sitting with the paramedics. She introduced herself gently and asked if he felt up to answering a few questions. Sean nodded, wiping his eyes. Lowe asked him to walk her through what happened. Sean repeated his story. Same details, same timeline. But Lowe was watching his body language, his facial expressions, his hands. She noticed something immediately. Sean's clothing was spotless. No dirt, no tears, no scrapes. If he'd lunged forward to try to grab the wheelchair, if he'd dropped to his knees in a desperate attempt to save his wife, there should be evidence of that on his clothes. But there wasn't. His shorts were clean. His shirt was clean. Even his hands were clean. Lowe also noticed Sean's eyes. They were red and puffy from crying, but there were no actual tears on his face. His cheeks were dry. It's a small detail, but one that stuck with her. People who are genuinely sobbing produce tears that run down their faces. Sean's eyes looked like someone who'd been rubbing them to make them red. Lowe asked Sean to clarify the distance. You said you were about 10 feet from the edge when the wheelchair tipped? Sean nodded. Yes, maybe 10 feet. We were being careful. Lowe made a note. That detail would become important later. Damon Fletcher, the hiker who'd heard the scream, was giving his statement to another officer nearby. Lowe overheard him describe what he'd heard. A woman's voice pleading, "Please, Sean. I don't want to be this close to the edge." Lowe's attention sharpened. That statement directly contradicted Sean's claim that the fall was sudden and unexpected. Lowe walked over to Damon and asked him to repeat what he'd heard. Damon was certain. He'd heard the woman beg. He'd heard fear in her voice. And then he'd heard the scream. Lowe thanked him and returned to Sean. She asked him directly, "Did Erica express any concerns about being too close to the edge?" Sean didn't hesitate. Of course she was nervous. The height was intimidating. I was reassuring her, telling her we'd be safe, that I wouldn't let anything happen to her. His answer was smooth. Too smooth. Lowe noted that he maintained intense eye contact with her while answering, which is often a sign someone is trying too hard to appear truthful. Most people in genuine distress avoid eye contact, look down, struggle to maintain composure. Sean was holding her gaze like he was trying to convince her. Lowe asked Sean about his morning. "What time did you and Erica leave the hotel?" Sean said they'd left around 11:30 and driven straight to Makaluapuna Point. Lowe made another note. She'd request hotel security footage to confirm that timeline. By late afternoon, the scene was fully processed. Erica's body had been recovered. Sean was driven back to the hotel by officers who wanted to make sure he wasn't alone. Lowe stayed at the cliffs, walking the area again as the sun began to set. Something was wrong. She couldn't put her finger on it yet, but every instinct she had was screaming that this wasn't an accident. At 9:47 p.m., Lowe's phone rang. It was Imani Caldwell, the tourist from Atlanta. Her voice was shaking. "Detective, I think I recorded something. I was filming the coastline this afternoon, and when I watched the video back, I think I saw someone get pushed off the cliff." Lowe was at Imani's hotel room within 20 minutes. Imani pulled up the video on her phone with trembling hands. "I wasn't even paying attention when I filmed it. I was just panning across the landscape. But when I reviewed my footage tonight, I saw this." She hit play. Lowe watched the screen. The video was shaky, shot from a distance, but it was clear enough. She saw Sean standing behind the wheelchair. She saw his body position, feet planted, shoulders squared. She saw his arms extend in a pushing motion. She saw the wheelchair lurch forward. She saw Erica's arms fly up. She heard the scream. And then she saw Sean stand there, motionless, for several seconds before stepping back. Lowe watched the video 3 times without saying a word. Then she looked at Imani and said, "I need you to send this to me right now. And I need you to stay in Maui for the next few days. You're a critical witness." Imani nodded, her face pale. "That was murder, wasn't it?" Lowe didn't answer directly. She just said, "Thank you for coming forward." Lowe drove straight back to the police station. She woke up the forensic video analyst and had him pull the footage onto a larger screen. They watched it frame by frame, analyzing every detail. The analyst confirmed what Lowe already knew. The wheelchair didn't roll on its own. It was pushed with significant force. Sean's body mechanics were consistent with someone shoving, not reaching or grabbing. This was not an accident. At 2:13 a.m., Lowe was still at the station, reviewing hotel security footage. And that's when she found it. The footage from 6:41 a.m. showing Sean leaving the hotel alone. The parking lot surveillance showing him driving to Makaluapuna Point, hours before bringing Erica there. The timestamp was clear. The vehicle was clearly their rental car. Sean had scouted the murder site that morning. Lowe leaned back in her chair and rubbed her eyes. She'd seen a lot in 16 years, but this was different. This was cold. This was planned. Sean Young hadn't just killed his wife in a moment of rage or panic. He'd researched it. He'd practiced it. He'd timed it. And then he'd cried on command when it was done. She opened a new case file on her computer and typed the classification. Homicide, first-degree murder. Then she started building the evidence list. The video, the reconnaissance trip, the witness testimony, the physical evidence at the scene. It was all there. Sean Young had committed murder, and he'd been stupid enough to do it in one of the most surveilled locations on the island. Lowe picked up her phone and called the prosecutor's office. "We need a warrant. I'm bringing in Sean Young for interrogation. And I think we're going to need to dig into his background. This doesn't feel like his first time." Detective Lowe knew that murder cases are rarely as simple as they first appear. Sean's motive seemed obvious: money. But as she started digging into his financial records, she found something that didn't fit. Large cash withdrawals in the weeks before the wedding. Odd payment patterns. And then, a name that kept appearing. Rita Langford. Lowe ran Rita's name through the system. Rita Langford, 33 years old, lived in Portland. She had one prior arrest for theft, though charges had been dropped. Lowe pulled Rita's phone records and cross-referenced them with Sean's. What she found was damning. Rita and Sean had been in contact for nearly 2 years, long before Sean ever met Erica. The first documented call between them was in January 2022, 2 months before Sean attended the disability conference where he coincidentally met Erica. After that first call, the communication increased. They texted constantly. They had phone calls that lasted hours. And the frequency spiked dramatically after Sean started dating Erica. Lowe requested warrants for both phones. The text message recovery took 48 hours, but it was worth the wait. The messages told a story of conspiracy, manipulation, and revenge. In June 2022, just after Sean and Erica became a couple, Rita sent a text. "Is she buying it? You need to move faster before she figures you out." Sean responded, "She's starting to trust me. I'm doing everything you said." In August, after Sean and Erica merged bank accounts, Rita texted, "How much access do you have now?" Sean replied, "Full access, joint accounts, credit cards, everything. She doesn't suspect a thing." In October, Rita sent, "Don't forget what she did to me. She humiliated me. She destroyed my career. She deserves what's coming." Sean's response was chilling. "I haven't forgotten. When this is done, she'll regret ever crossing you." Lowe needed to understand the connection. Who was Rita Langford to Erica? She called Bella, Erica's aunt, and asked if the name meant anything. Bella's reaction was immediate. "Rita? Yes, I know her. She used to work for Erica's nonprofit. Why?" Bella explained that Rita had been hired as an administrative assistant in 2020. She and Erica had become friends. They'd had coffee together, attended events, seemed close. But in late 2021, Erica discovered financial discrepancies in the nonprofit's accounts. An internal audit revealed that Rita had been embezzling funds for 8 months. Small amounts at first, $200 here, $300 there, but it added up to nearly $12,000. Erica confronted Rita privately. She gave her a choice: repay the money and resign quietly, or face criminal charges. Rita refused. She became defensive, angry, accusatory. She claimed Erica was discriminating against her, that the audit was flawed, that she was being set up. Erica fired her on the spot and cut off all personal contact. Rita left furious. She sent Erica a final email that was so threatening Erica nearly filed for a restraining order. The email said, "You think you're better than everyone because you have money. You're not. You're just a spoiled, entitled woman who got lucky. Someday someone's going to show you what it's like to lose everything. And I hope I'm there to see it." Bella's voice cracked as she recounted the story. Erica was heartbroken. She'd trusted Rita. She'd considered her a friend. The betrayal hit her hard. Lowe thanked Bella and hung up. The pieces were coming together. Rita didn't just help Sean plan the murder. She recruited him. She found him on a dating app, saw his financial desperation, and offered him a target. She fed him information about Erica, her routines, her vulnerabilities, her financial situation, her trust issues. She coached him on what to say, how to act, how to break down Erica's defenses. Lowe found more evidence on Rita's laptop, seized with a search warrant. Rita had kept detailed notes about Erica. One document was titled "Ease Weaknesses" and listed psychological manipulation tactics. Another document outlined Erica's entire financial structure: the trust fund, the condo, the investment accounts, the nonprofit. Rita had done her homework. There was also a drafted script for Sean with suggested conversation topics and responses. If she asks about your job, say you're between opportunities but focusing on meaningful work. If she mentions her trust issues, validate them, but position yourself as different from past experiences. It was a blueprint for manipulation. The financial arrangement was spelled out in text messages. Sean had promised Rita 30% of Erica's inheritance once he gained access. That would have been approximately $2.46 million. Rita had even calculated it down to the dollar. On November 5th, 3 days before the murder, Sean texted Rita, "Hawaii is set. 1 more week and we're both free. Don't lose your nerve now." Rita's response, "I won't. Just make sure it looks like an accident. She took everything from me. Now I take everything from her." Lowe had everything she needed. On November 12th, she flew to Portland with 2 other detectives. They arrested Rita at her apartment at 6 a.m. Rita answered the door in pajamas, confused and disoriented. When Lowe identified herself and said, "Rita Langford, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder," Rita's face went white. At first, Rita denied everything. I don't know what you're talking about. I haven't spoken to Erica in over a year. Lowe placed printed copies of the text messages on the table between them. Rita stared at them, her hands shaking. Where did you get those? Lowe leaned forward. Your phone? Sean's phone? Cloud backups? Digital evidence never really disappears, Rita. Rita tried to pivot. I didn't know he was going to kill her. I thought he was just going to divorce her and take half her assets. That's not illegal. Lowe slid another paper across the table, a printout of Rita's final text to Sean. Make sure it looks like an accident. You wrote that 3 days before Erica died. You knew exactly what he was planning. Rita broke down. She admitted she hated Erica. She admitted she'd wanted Erica to suffer. She admitted she'd helped Sean plan the relationship, provided inside information, and stood to profit from Erica's death. But she insisted she hadn't known Sean would actually go through with murder. It was a weak defense, and everyone in the room knew it. Rita was charged with conspiracy to commit murder, accessory to murder before the fact, and insurance fraud conspiracy. Bail was denied. She was held at Multnomah County Detention Center awaiting extradition to Hawaii. Lowe returned to Maui with a fuller picture. This wasn't just a man killing his wife for money. This was a coordinated attack by two people motivated by greed and revenge. Rita had weaponized Sean, pointed him at Erica, and pulled the trigger through him. They'd both killed Erica, and they were both going to pay. While Detective Lowe was unraveling the conspiracy with Rita, digital forensics specialist Garrett McAdams was tearing apart Sean's electronic life. McAdams had spent 15 years recovering deleted data, tracking digital footprints, and exposing lies hidden in search histories and text messages. Sean's devices were a goldmine. The first thing McAdams recovered was Sean's deleted search history. People always think deleting their browser history erases the evidence. It doesn't. Even when files are deleted, fragments remain on the hard drive. McAdams used specialized software to pull every search query Sean had made in the 6 months before Erica's death. The searches started in late September, about 6 weeks before the wedding. On September 22nd at 11:47 p.m., Sean searched, "How to stage a fall from a cliff." 2 days later, "Can wheelchair user survive fall into ocean?" On September 29th, "Most dangerous cliffs in Hawaii accessible by car." The searches continued through October. "Do disabled people float?" Maui cliff death statistics. "How long does it take to find a body in the ocean?" Each search was time-stamped. Each one was recovered. Each one painted a clear picture of premeditation. Sean wasn't idly curious. He was researching how to commit murder and get away with it. McAdams also found searches related to inheritance law. "How long does it take to access deceased spouse estate?" "Can life insurance deny payout for accidental death?" "What happens to joint bank accounts when spouse dies?" Sean had been planning not just how to kill Erica, but how to profit from her death as quickly as possible. The life insurance policy was another critical piece. Investigators discovered that Sean had taken out a $2 million policy on Erica's life just 6 days before the wedding. The application was dated November 1st, 2023. Erica's signature appeared on the documents, but handwriting analysts determined it was a forgery. Sean had signed her name without her knowledge. The insurance company that issued the policy confirmed they'd never spoken directly to Erica. All communication had gone through Sean, who claimed Erica was too busy with wedding planning to handle the paperwork herself. The first premium payment, $1,847, was charged to one of Erica's credit cards. She was paying for the insurance policy that would pay out when she died, and she didn't even know it existed. McAdams also tracked Sean's financial desperation. Bank records showed a man in free fall. In April 2023, 6 months before the murder, Sean's checking account was overdrawn by $3,400. By May, creditors were threatening legal action over $87,000 in unpaid credit card debt. 2 collection agencies had filed judgments against him. In June, he received an eviction notice for $4,200 in unpaid rent. Then, in July, everything changed. Sean moved in with Erica. Suddenly, all his expenses were covered. Rent, $0. Utilities, $0. Groceries, $0. Erica paid for everything. In August, Sean added himself to all her bank accounts. In September, wedding expenses started piling up. $30,000 total, every penny charged to Erica's cards. The financial motive was overwhelming. Sean stood to inherit approximately $8.21 million, Erica's $4.3 million trust fund, her $680,000 condo, the $2 million life insurance payout, joint bank accounts totaling $340,000, her investment portfolio worth $890,000. After Sean paid Rita her promised 30%, $2.46 million, he'd still walk away with $575 million. That's what Erica's life was worth to him. McAdams also recovered the antihistamine purchase. On November 6, the day before Erica's mysterious food poisoning, Sean made a purchase at CVS Pharmacy. Security footage confirmed he bought the maximum allowed quantity of diphenhydramine, 200 milliliters worth of Benadryl. The toxicology report on Erica's body showed elevated levels of the drug consistent with intentional overdose, not accidental ingestion. This evidence proved the first murder attempt. Sean had tried to kill Erica at Nakalele Blowhole by drugging her, making her disoriented, and pushing her off those cliffs. When that failed because her body processed the drug too quickly, he adapted. He chose a different location and tried again, and the second time, he succeeded. McAdams found one more damning piece of evidence: Sean's dating app history. Between 2020 and 2022, Sean had been active on 3 different dating platforms. His search filters were specific: women aged 30-45, income over $100,000, interested in serious relationships, and he'd paid for premium features that allowed him to filter by disability status. The messages Sean sent to various women followed an identical pattern. To a wheelchair user in Seattle: I find strength and resilience incredibly attractive. Your disability doesn't define you. To a blind woman in Portland: I've always admired people who overcome adversity with grace. To a woman with cerebral palsy in Tacoma: real beauty is about the soul, not the body. He'd sent nearly identical opening messages to at least 12 different disabled women over 2 years. 3 responded positively and agreed to meet him. One of those women was Portia Saunders, the Seattle financial analyst who'd nearly died in a carbon monoxide incident in 2019. Another was Chantal Rousseau, the Portland gallery owner whose family had hired a private investigator. The third was Simone Eckhart, who'd filed a restraining order. Detective Lowe reached out to all 3 women. Each had a similar story. Sean was charming at first. He seemed caring and patient, but quickly he became focused on their finances. He asked invasive questions about their income, their savings, their assets. He pushed for quick commitment. And when they pulled back or questioned his intentions, he became cold and disappeared. Portia Saunders agreed to provide a full statement. She described the night before her carbon monoxide incident. Sean had been at her house, claiming to fix her garage door opener, which had been malfunctioning. The next morning, she'd gone to her car in the garage, started the engine to warm it up while she grabbed her work bag and passed out. She woke up in a hospital 3 days later. Doctors said she'd come within minutes of dying. The case had been ruled accidental. But after hearing about Erica's murder, Portia went back and looked at her home security footage from that night. It showed Sean spending over an hour in her garage. When he left, he was carrying tools. Forensic experts who reviewed the footage later determined Sean had tampered with her car's exhaust system and disabled her garage door opener's remote function. He'd tried to kill her too. Seattle Police Department reopened the investigation into Portia's case. They filed attempted murder charges against Sean. He was now facing 2 murder-related charges in 2 different states. The digital evidence was overwhelming. Every search, every message, every financial transaction. It all told the same story. Sean Young was a predator who targeted vulnerable women for their money. He manipulated them, isolated them, and when the opportunity arose, he tried to kill them. Erica wasn't his first target. She was just the first one who didn't survive. On November 10, 2023, 2 days after Erica's death, Detective Lowe called Sean and asked him to come to the police station. She kept her tone friendly and sympathetic. "We just need to ask you a few follow-up questions to help close out our report. It's standard procedure in cases like this. Sean agreed without hesitation. Of course, detective. Anything I can do to help. I want answers about what happened to my wife. Sean arrived at Maui Police Department headquarters at 10:15 a.m. He came alone, without an attorney. That was his first mistake. He was confident. He believed his story was airtight. He believed his performance at the cliffs had been convincing. He had no idea that Detective Lowe had already watched him commit murder on video. Lowe met Sean in the lobby and escorted him to interview room B. The room was small, windowless, with a table and 3 chairs. A camera mounted in the corner recorded everything. Lowe offered Sean water and coffee. He accepted both. She sat across from him and smiled warmly. Thanks for coming in, Sean. I know this must be incredibly difficult for you. Sean's eyes were red. His voice was soft. I still can't believe she's gone, detective. Every time I close my eyes, I see her going over that edge. I keep thinking if I just grabbed the wheelchair a second faster. He trailed off, his voice breaking. Lowe nodded sympathetically. I can't imagine what you're going through. Let's start from the beginning. Walk me through your day on November 8th. What time did you wake up? Sean described waking up around 8 a.m., having breakfast with Erica in their suite, and deciding to visit Makaluapuna Point. He said they left the hotel around 11:30 and drove straight there. He described pushing Erica's wheelchair across the difficult terrain, stopping to admire the view, and then the wheelchair suddenly hitting a rock and tipping forward. It happened so fast, he said. 1 second we were fine, and the next second she was gone. Lowe listened without interrupting. She took notes. She maintained a sympathetic expression. And then she asked, Sean, you said you left the hotel around 11:30? He nodded. Yes, maybe 11:45 at the latest. Lowe flipped through her notes. And you went straight to Makaluapuna Point? Sean nodded again. Yes, straight there. Lowe paused. She reached into a folder and pulled out a printed screenshot. She slid it across the table. It showed Sean walking through the hotel lobby at 6:41 a.m. The timestamp was clear. Sean's face drained of color. This is you leaving the hotel at 6:41 in the morning, isn't it? Lowe's tone was still calm, but there was an edge now. Sean stared at the photo. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Finally, he said, Oh, right. I forgot about that. I went out for coffee and took a walk on the beach. Lowe didn't react. She pulled out another screenshot. Sean's rental car entering the Makaluapuna Point parking area at 6:58 a.m. This is your rental car at Makaluapuna Point. You weren't at the beach, Sean. You were at the cliffs. Why? Sean's hands started trembling. I wanted to check if the path was safe for Erica's wheelchair. I was trying to be a good husband. His voice had lost its earlier confidence. Lowe leaned forward slightly. You forgot that you scouted the location where your wife would die just 6 hours later? Sean didn't answer. Lowe continued. Sean, we have surveillance footage of you standing at the cliff's edge for 4 minutes. You paced the route 3 times. You took photos. That's not checking for safety. That's planning something. Sean's face flushed. I don't have to sit here and listen to accusations. Lowe's expression didn't change. You're not under arrest, Sean. You're free to leave any time. But I thought you wanted to help us understand what happened. Sean stayed in his chair. Lowe pulled out more documents, printouts of his search history. She read them aloud. How to stage a fall from a cliff. Can wheelchair user survive fall into ocean? Most dangerous cliffs in Hawaii. She looked up at him. These searches were made from your laptop 3 weeks before your wedding. Want to explain those? Sean's breathing quickened. I was researching safety. I wanted to know the risks before taking Erica anywhere dangerous. His explanation sounded weak even to him. Safety research? Lowe's tone was skeptical. You searched, do disabled people float? How is that safety research? Sean had no answer. Lowe switched tactics. Let's talk about Rita Langford. Sean's eyes widened. Who? Lowe smiled. Come on, Sean. Rita, your partner. The woman you've been in contact with for 2 years. The woman you promised 30% of Erica's inheritance. Sean shook his head. I don't know anyone named Rita. Lowe placed phone records on the table, pages of call logs and text messages. You called her 47 times in the 6 months before the murder. You texted her the night before you killed Erica. Sean stared at the records. His story was collapsing. Lowe kept pushing. Rita's already talking, Sean. She's telling us everything. The planning, the coaching, how you two celebrated before your wedding. She's trying to save herself by giving you up. Sean's face hardened. I want a lawyer. Lowe nodded. That's your right. But before you do, there's one more thing you should see. She opened her laptop and turned it toward Sean. A witness recorded video that afternoon. You'll want to see this. Sean stared at the screen. I said I want a lawyer. Lowe hit play anyway. The video showed the cliffs, the ocean, and 2 figures. Sean watched himself push Erica's wheelchair over the edge. He watched her fall. He heard her scream. The room was silent except for the audio from the video, wind, waves, and terror. When the video ended, Sean was pale and shaking. He tried to speak but couldn't form words. Lowe closed the laptop. We had 3 biomechanics experts analyze this footage. Your stance, your arm extension, the force required. You pushed her, Sean. This wasn't an accident. Sean's voice was barely a whisper. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. Lowe leaned in. How was it supposed to happen? Tell me. Sean caught himself. I need a lawyer. I'm not saying anything else. The interview ended at 11:47 a.m. Sean was formally arrested and charged with first-degree murder, attempted murder, insurance fraud, and forgery. Bail was denied. He was transported to Maui Community Correctional Center. As the cell door closed, Sean said to no one in particular, Rita was supposed to keep her mouth shut. Detective Lowe walked out of the interview room and called the prosecutor's office. We've got him. He's done. Let's move to trial. The joint trial of Sean Young and Rita Langford began in April 2024 at Maui Second Circuit Court. The case had attracted national media attention. News outlets from across the country sent reporters. True crime podcasts covered it extensively. Disability rights advocates attended every day, wanting to see justice for Erica. The courtroom was packed. The prosecution was led by Deputy Prosecutor Camille Thornton, a 46-year-old veteran known for her methodical approach to complex cases. She'd prosecuted over 30 homicides and had a conviction rate above 90%. She didn't take cases unless she was certain she could win. And she was certain about this one. Sean's defense attorney was Vincent Rossi, a high-profile criminal defense lawyer from Honolulu. He'd been hired using money from the joint bank account Sean shared with Erica, meaning Erica's money was being used to defend the man who killed her. Rossi was known for aggressive tactics and creating reasonable doubt where none should exist. Rita's attorney was Shayna Ormond, a public defender. Rita couldn't afford private counsel. Ormond was competent but overworked, handling dozens of cases simultaneously. She knew Rita's best chance was cooperation and a plea deal. Bella sat in the front row every single day, wearing a purple scarf that had belonged to Erica. She wanted Sean and Rita to see her. She wanted them to remember who they'd killed. Prosecutor Thornton's opening statement was powerful and precise. She walked the jury through the timeline. Sean's financial desperation, his targeting of vulnerable women, his meeting with Erica, the manipulation, the wedding, the reconnaissance trip, and finally the murder. She presented the case as a carefully planned execution, motivated by greed and revenge. This wasn't a tragedy, Thornton said, looking each juror in the eye. This was an execution disguised as a honeymoon. Sean Young and Rita Langford conspired to kill Erica Whitmore because they valued money more than human life. The evidence will show you that Erica died not because of an accident, but because 2 people decided she was worth more dead than alive. Vincent Rossi's opening statement took a different approach. He portrayed Sean as a grieving widower being persecuted by overzealous investigators. He claimed the video evidence was misleading, taken from a distance and open to interpretation. He suggested the search history reflected curiosity, not planning. He argued that Sean's reconnaissance trip was genuine concern for his wife's safety. Ladies and gentlemen, grief is not guilt. A bad decision is not murder. The prosecution wants you to believe my client is a monster, but what you'll see is a man who made a tragic mistake and has been vilified for it. Rita's attorney, Shayna Ormond, had a harder case to argue. Her opening focused on manipulation. She claimed Rita had been used by Sean, that she'd believed he was only planning to divorce Erica, not murder her. She presented Rita as another victim of Sean's lies. It was a weak defense, and everyone knew it. The prosecution's witness list was extensive. Bella Whitmore testified first. She described Erica's childhood, the plane crash that killed her parents, her medical crisis, and her struggles with trust. She talked about meeting Sean and her initial concerns. She recounted Sean asking about Erica's will days after proposing. He wanted to know exactly what Erica had and who would inherit if something happened to her. At the time, I thought he was just being practical. Now I know he was planning her murder. Bella broke down when describing the moment she identified Erica's body. They asked me to confirm it was her. I looked at her face, and I just kept thinking. She survived so much. She survived losing her parents. She survived a disease that nearly killed her. But she couldn't survive the man who promised to love her. The jury was visibly moved. 2 jurors wiped away tears. Detective Kendra Lowe testified for an entire day. She walked the jury through every piece of evidence, the surveillance footage, the search history, the witness statements, the forensic analysis. She explained how the investigation unfolded, how each piece of evidence pointed to premeditated murder. Rossi tried to poke holes in her testimony during cross-examination, but Lowe was unshakable. She'd seen the evidence. She knew what happened. Imani Caldwell's testimony was the most dramatic. She described filming the coastline and not realizing what she'd captured until later. The prosecution played her video for the jury on a large screen. The courtroom fell silent. The video showed Sean's push clearly. It showed Erica's defensive arm movements. It captured her scream. Several jurors looked away. One covered her mouth. Another shook his head in visible disgust. Rossi tried to argue the video was taken from too far away to be definitive. He suggested the angle was misleading. But on redirect, Prosecutor Thornton had Imani explain exactly where she'd been standing and what the camera had captured. "I saw him push her," Imani said firmly. "There's no other interpretation." Damon Fletcher testified about hearing Erica's plea. "Please, Sean, I don't want to be this close to the edge." He described Sean's demeanor afterward. He was checking his phone. His wife had just fallen to her death and he was looking at his phone. That stayed with me. Dr. Renata Hughes, the forensic biomechanics expert, used 3D modeling and diagrams to explain the physics of what happened. She showed that the wheelchair couldn't have rolled on its own. She explained the force required to propel it forward. She analyzed Sean's body position and arm extension. Her conclusion was unequivocal. This was not an accident. The wheelchair was pushed with deliberate force. Garrett McAdams, the digital forensics specialist, walked the jury through Sean's search history. He showed the pattern, searches escalating as the wedding approached. He presented the evidence methodically, showing each search with its date and timestamp. These searches show a man researching how to commit murder and get away with it. This wasn't idle curiosity. This was planning. The prosecution's final witness was Rita Langford. She'd accepted a plea deal, testifying against Sean in exchange for reduced charges. She would serve 25 years to life instead of life without parole. Rita took the stand looking gaunt and defeated. She admitted she hated Erica for exposing her embezzlement. She confirmed she'd contacted Sean after finding him on a dating app. She described coaching him on how to manipulate Erica. "I told him exactly what to say, how to act, what her weak points were," Rita testified. "I gave him a script. I provided information about her finances. I helped him plan everything." The courtroom was silent. Prosecutor Thornton asked, "Did you know he planned to kill her?" Rita hesitated. "He said he would handle it. He said she'd have an accident. I didn't think he'd actually go through with it." Thornton presented the text message Rita had sent 3 days before the murder. "Make sure it looks like an accident." Thornton read it aloud. "You wrote that. What did you think 'make sure it looks like an accident' meant?" Rita's voice broke. "I was angry. I wanted her to suffer. I didn't think he'd kill her." Thornton's response was cold. "You helped plan a murder, Rita. Whether you thought he'd go through with it or not, you're responsible." Rossi's cross-examination of Rita was brutal. He called her a liar trying to save herself. He suggested she was the mastermind and Sean was the manipulated party. Rita maintained her story. She'd helped plan it, but she hadn't believed Sean would actually commit murder. The jury didn't look convinced. The defense called character witnesses: Sean's mother, 2 former co-workers, a neighbor. All testified that Sean was kind, reliable, devoted to Erica. None could explain the evidence. All admitted they'd had no knowledge of his financial situation or his relationship with Rita. And then Sean took the stand. His attorney strongly advised against it, but Sean insisted. He believed he could convince the jury. He was wrong. Sean's testimony was polished at first. He described loving Erica, wanting to give her a beautiful honeymoon, taking her to Makaluapuna Point, because he thought she'd enjoy it. He insisted everything was a tragic accident. He claimed the reconnaissance trip was checking for safety. He said the searches were research. He said the antihistamine overdose was unexplained, but Prosecutor Thornton destroyed him on cross-examination. "If you loved her, why did you take her to one of the most dangerous, inaccessible locations in Maui?" Sean stumbled. "I thought it would be beautiful." Thornton pressed. "You thought dragging a wheelchair across jagged volcanic rock would be beautiful?" Sean had no good answer. "If it was an accident, why did you scout the location 6 hours before?" Sean repeated his safety explanation. Thornton didn't let it go. "You stood at the cliff's edge for 4 minutes staring down. What safety information did that provide?" Sean couldn't answer. "Why did you search how to stage a fall from a cliff if you had no plans to harm her?" Sean tried to deflect. "That search is taken out of context." Thornton held up the printout. "What context makes that search innocent?" Sean said nothing. "Why did you promise Rita Langford 30% of your wife's inheritance?" Sean denied it at first, then admitted he'd discussed finances with Rita. "She was helping me plan the wedding," he said weakly. Thornton presented bank records showing the planned split. "This wasn't wedding planning, Sean. This was dividing up murder profits." By the time cross-examination ended, Sean's credibility was demolished. He'd contradicted himself multiple times. He'd had no explanations for the most damning evidence. The jury's expressions ranged from disgust to anger. Closing arguments took place on April 29, 2024. Prosecutor Thornton delivered a powerful summation. Sean Young and Rita Langford targeted a vulnerable woman, manipulated her, married her, and murdered her for money. The evidence is overwhelming. The video is undeniable. Justice demands you convict both defendants of murder. Rossi's closing argument emphasized reasonable doubt and suggested the prosecution's case was circumstantial. But it rang hollow against the mountain of evidence. The jury deliberated for 6 hours over 2 days. On May 1, 2024, they returned with their verdict. Sean Young, guilty of first-degree murder with special circumstances. Guilty of attempted murder. Guilty of insurance fraud. Guilty of forgery. Rita Langford, guilty of conspiracy to commit murder. Guilty of accessory to murder before the fact. Sean showed no emotion. He stared straight ahead as the verdicts were read. Rita sobbed into her hands. Sean was sentenced to life in prison without possibility of parole. Rita was sentenced to 25 years to life. As deputies led Sean out of the courtroom, he glanced at Bella one last time. She turned her back to him. He would never see freedom again. After the convictions, Detective Lowe expanded her investigation. The question haunted her. Were there other victims? Sean had targeted multiple disabled women before Erica. How many had he hurt? How many had he tried to kill? The Seattle Police Department officially reopened the investigation into Portia Saunders' carbon monoxide incident from 2019. Forensic experts reviewed her home security footage and confirmed Sean had tampered with her car's exhaust system and disabled her garage door opener. He'd tried to kill her. Charges were filed. Attempted murder. Sean would face trial in Seattle after serving his Hawaii sentence, though realistically, he'd never leave a Hawaiian prison alive. Portia gave a statement to the press after learning about the charges. "When I heard what happened to Erica, I felt sick. That could have been me. He tried to kill me too. I survived because I woke up when I did. Erica didn't have that chance." Chantal Rousseau, the Portland gallery owner who'd broken off her engagement to Sean after her family hired a private investigator, also came forward. She described Sean's behavior during their relationship: the rapid push for commitment, the invasive questions about finances, the attempt to isolate her from family. "My family saved my life by investigating him. If I'd married him, I'd probably be dead too." Detective Lowe also discovered disturbing patterns in Sean's spending immediately after Erica's death. Between November 8th and November 10th, before his arrest, Sean charged over $6,000 to Erica's credit cards. He upgraded to a luxury suite at the hotel. He rented a premium convertible. He ate at expensive restaurants. He bought a $4,000 Rolex watch. He wasn't grieving. He was celebrating. Erica's inheritance, which Sean never accessed, went to Bella. She immediately established the Erica Whitmore Foundation with the funds. The foundation's mission is protecting vulnerable adults from financial exploitation and relationship abuse. It offers free background check services for disabled individuals entering relationships. It provides financial literacy courses. It funds legal advocacy for victims. It supports disability rights legislation. The foundation also funded infrastructure improvements. Wheelchair-accessible pathways were installed at several Maui scenic overlooks. Warning signs about dangerous terrain were posted at Makaluapuna Point. Park rangers now patrol the area regularly. Erica's death led to changes that would protect others. The witnesses from that day continue to process what they saw. Imani Caldwell still struggles with guilt. "I recorded it. I was there. Maybe if I'd been paying attention, if I'd shouted, she'd still be alive." She started advocating for bystander intervention training. She speaks at community events about the importance of awareness and action. Damon Fletcher has similar guilt. "I heard her beg him. If I'd run faster, if I'd gotten there sooner." He channels that guilt into volunteer work with search and rescue organizations. He's helped save 3 lives in the 2 years since Erica's death. Detective Lowe reflects on the case often. Sean and Rita didn't see Erica as a person. They saw an opportunity. That level of cruelty stays with you. She uses the case as a teaching example for new investigators. Never assume accidents are accidents. Always dig deeper. Sean Young is incarcerated at Halawa Correctional Facility on Oahu. He's kept in protective custody because other inmates target convicted murderers, especially those who killed vulnerable victims. He maintains his innocence in letters to distant family members. One leaked letter said, "Everyone thinks I'm a monster. I made mistakes, but I loved Erica. No one understands that." Prison officials note he shows no genuine remorse. He talks about the case as if it happened to someone else. He focuses on his appeals, which have all been denied. He'll die in prison. Rita Langford is at Women's Community Correctional Center. She participates in rehabilitation programs and has expressed remorse in letters to Bella, though Bella has never responded. Rita is eligible for parole in 2042, when she'll be 55 years old. Whether she'll receive it depends on many factors, but her role in planning Erica's murder makes it unlikely. Questions remain. How many other women did Sean target who never came forward? Were there other close calls no one knew about? Did Rita help him target others before Erica? Investigators continue to follow leads, but answers are incomplete. What's clear is this: Erica Whitmore was murdered by 2 people who valued money over human life. She was targeted because she was vulnerable, wealthy, and trusting. She died believing the man she married loved her. And in her final seconds, she learned the truth. But by then, it was too late to save herself. Erica's story is a tragedy, but it's also a warning. Experts who study financial exploitation and relationship abuse have analyzed this case extensively. They've identified patterns that others should recognize, red flags that might save lives. Dr. Simone Aguiman, a forensic psychologist who testified as an expert in similar cases, breaks down Sean's tactics. Sean exhibited classic predatory behaviors. He targeted vulnerable individuals with assets. He used superficial charm to gain trust. He mirrored his target's interests to create false compatibility. He isolated them from support systems, and he escalated control quickly. The statistics are sobering. Disabled individuals are 3 times more likely to experience financial abuse in intimate relationships compared to able-bodied individuals. They're also more likely to experience physical abuse, isolation, and exploitation. The reasons are complex: societal attitudes toward disability, limited dating options, desperation for connection, and the manipulation of physical vulnerabilities. Dr. Aguiman explains the psychology. People with disabilities often face rejection in the dating world. They're told repeatedly that they're burdens, that they're less desirable, that they should be grateful for attention. Predators exploit that messaging. They present themselves as different, as accepting, as truly seeing the person. And victims want so desperately to believe it's real that they ignore warning signs. The warning signs in Sean and Erica's relationship were there from the beginning. The rushed timeline. Proposal within 11 months. Marriage within 18. The financial enmeshment before marriage. Merging accounts. Adding himself to credit cards. The isolation. Slowly cutting Erica off from friends who questioned the relationship. The love bombing. Excessive affection and promises early on. The targeting of vulnerability, specifically seeking disabled, wealthy women. Bella has become a national advocate for vulnerable adults. She speaks at conferences, universities, and community centers. Her message is consistent. Trust your instincts. Real love doesn't rush you. It doesn't isolate you. It doesn't demand immediate access to your finances. Love should feel safe, not urgent. She advocates for practical protections, thorough vetting of new partners, background checks before serious commitment, keeping finances separate until deep trust is established over time, listening to concerned family and friends rather than dismissing them, watching for controlling behaviors disguised as care, trusting gut feelings when something feels wrong. The FBI reports that financial exploitation in romantic relationships has increased 24% in the last decade. The rise of online dating has made it easier for predators to research and target victims. They can filter searches, study social media profiles, and craft perfect personas before ever meeting someone in person. The National Council on Disability estimates only 1 in 14 financial abuse cases are reported. Victims feel ashamed. They don't want to admit they were fooled. They fear judgment. They worry no one will believe them. That silence protects predators and allows them to target multiple victims before being caught. Makaluapuna Point, where Erica died, remains a tourist destination. The Dragon's Teeth formations still draw hundreds of visitors daily. But now there are warning signs. Park services installed accessibility advisories after Erica's death. Signs explicitly warn against bringing wheelchairs on the dangerous terrain. Rangers patrol more frequently. Some visitors leave flowers at the spot where Erica fell. Bella visited once, 2 years after the murder. She stood at the cliff's edge, carefully, safely, and spoke to her niece. "You deserved so much more. You deserved a lifetime of real love. You deserved to be safe. I'm so sorry I couldn't protect you." She scattered some of Erica's ashes into the wind. The rest she scattered at Cannon Beach in Oregon, where she and Erica used to watch sunsets together. Every November 8th, on the anniversary of Erica's death, a wheelchair race is held in Portland in her honor. Hundreds participate. The race raises funds for the Erica Whitmore Foundation. Participants wear purple, Erica's favorite color. It's a celebration of her life and a commitment to protecting others. Erica's nonprofit organization, which she founded to help disabled professionals find employment, continues to operate under new leadership. They added a program that provides education about financial safety and relationship abuse. Erica's legacy lives on in the work she started. Policy changes have resulted from Erica's case. Hawaii improved accessibility warnings at dangerous tourist locations. Dating platforms implemented optional safety verification features. Several states introduced legislation requiring financial institutions to flag suspicious account changes. Disability rights organizations increased educational outreach about financial protection. But the most important legacy is awareness. Erica's story has been covered extensively by media, true crime platforms, and educational programs. Thousands of people have heard her story. Some have recognized warning signs in their own relationships and gotten out. Some have checked on friends who seemed isolated. Some have reported suspicious behavior that led to investigations. Bella receives messages regularly from people who say Erica's story saved them. One woman wrote, "I was engaged to a man who was exactly like Sean. When I heard your niece's story, I recognized everything. I broke off the engagement and discovered he'd been lying about his entire background. Thank you for sharing her story. It saved my life." That's Erica's real legacy. Her death was senseless and cruel, but her story has become a warning that echoes across the country. Love should never cost your life. Trust should be earned over time, not demanded immediately. And when someone seems too perfect, when their devotion feels rehearsed, when your gut says something is wrong, listen. Because Erica trusted when she should have questioned. She believed when she should have investigated. She loved when she should have protected herself. And Sean Young counted on every single one of those things. Sean Young remains a prisoner at a correctional facility. He will never breathe free air again. He will never inherit a single dollar of Erica's fortune. He will never manipulate another vulnerable woman. But the damage he caused can never be undone. Erica Whitmore was 34 years old when she died. She survived a plane crash that killed both her parents when she was 7. She survived a devastating illness that left her in a wheelchair. She survived years of loneliness, heartbreak, and trust issues. But she couldn't survive the man she married. The man who saw her wealth before he saw her heart. The man who promised forever, but planned her death from the beginning. Her Aunt Bella continues to honor Erica's memory through the foundation that bears her name. The work protects others from predators who see vulnerability as opportunity. Every year on November 8th, flowers appear at Makaluapuna Point. A reminder that Erica was here, that she mattered, that her life had value far beyond the money Sean tried to steal. Her death was not in vain. Her story saves lives. It teaches us to recognize warning signs, to trust our instincts, to know that real love never rushes, never isolates, never demands access to everything we have. Sean Young thought the cliffs would hide his crime. Instead, they exposed it. He thought Erica's disability made her easy to erase. Instead, it made the world pay attention. He thought he'd committed the perfect murder. Instead, he committed the most documented, thoroughly exposed murder in Hawaiian history. If this story impacted you, if it made you think differently about trust and love and the people we let into our lives, please share it. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss a story that could save a life. Turn on notifications because every case we cover teaches us something about protecting ourselves and the people we love. Leave a comment below. What do you think is the biggest red flag people ignore in relationships? Your answer might help someone else recognize danger. And if you or someone you know is in a relationship that feels controlling, isolating, or dangerous, reach out for help. Speak out. That is the best decision ever. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, stay aware, and we'll see you in the next investigation.